Welcome to the Retirement Evolved podcast with certified financial fiduciary Adam Bruno.
Let's go.
You are always ready, my man. You're just jumping right in. Let's get to it.
Let's go.
Let's get to it. How are you?
I'm doing good, Bill. It's great to talk to you.
You too. Always a pleasure when we get to sit down and hammer out another podcast and help folks understand what it takes to get their retirement. Because, boy, in this day and age, it takes a lot.
It does.
That's
really
not an understatement.
right now. Yeah.
But I do want to let folks know, and thank you very much for listening, by the way. And before we get started, please hit like, subscribe, follow, whatever the button is on the pod player that you're using. We appreciate you very much and would love to count you in as part of our growing audience. So if you could, go ahead, subscribe, like, follow. We'd very much appreciate it. Adam Bruno is a certified fiduciary. He's also the founder, president, and chief cook at Evolution Retirement Services and Evolution Wealth Management. He is a private wealth manager.
Thanks, Bill.
Who's been practicing?
That's right. Well, it's that whole financial advisor title. Like I said, there's so much stigma there. You know, I like to diversify myself a little bit.
Right. So there you go. But he's the man that has answers to a lot of your retirement questions. And we're going to talk about some of that today and some other stuff as well. It's hard to believe, but we're not that far off from Labor Day already. And,
I know. I was just looking at the calendar and I said, oh, my gosh.
It's almost September. And a lot of folks get together, do the big cookouts. I'm from the South as well. And, you know, when you call it a barbecue, that's not true. You're cooking out in your backyard. You eat barbecue.
That's right.
That's
right.
That's how it works down here. But and just in time for Labor Day and all that fun family stuff, Doritos has 2 new flavors coming out.
I heard about this.
Yeah,
what were they?
Well, one is ketchup Doritos. I don't understand.
Bill, back in the day, they had those Charlie's Chips delivery service.
Yes, Charles Chips, yes.
They came in the tins. The ketchup-flavored ones were my best friend Nick D'Angelo and I. Those were our favorite. We would always have those. But I don't know about putting ketchup flavor on a Dorito. That's kind of a whole different animal there.
Yeah, and well, if you don't like that, then perhaps you'll go for the new spicy mustard Dorito.
Ooh.
So maybe if you put them together, it's kind of like eating a hot dog. You know, I like anything with the word spicy in it.
Or if you crunch them up and put them on the hot dog, maybe you got something going there.
See, this is why you own the company.
Well, that's why
I do the
cook,
podcast.
Right?
Absolutely. Well,
yeah.
Listen, just be on the lookout for those if you're looking to spice up your get-together for Labor Day.
Boom.
Thank you. Unfortunately for you, I'm here all week. So, you know, one of the things that we can't get away from and we keep talking about all the time, but it is what it is, right, is inflation and the rising cost of everything. However, a couple pieces of good news, right? I read an article that said domestic airfare this fall could be dropping for the first time in a while. As a matter of fact, they're talking about going down about 25% compared to the airfare peak, which happened back in May. So,
you know, I put my tin cap on for this one. I have a little conspiracy here with that.
Okay.
You know, you ever notice how it seems like right around football season, all the fares start to go down? Do you think it's because the advertisements are kicking in? Like in Las Vegas, it's Allegiant Air Stadium, you know, those types of things. Maybe they're getting so much more recognition, they get a little bit more traffic so they can afford to lower the cost a little. I don't know. That's just my thoughts.
I hadn't thought about that.
Look, it always seems like football season is when you get to lower fares now.
I'm always up for a good conspiracy. So, that works for me, absolutely.
Yeah.
But if you're looking to fly, apparently if you can hang on for another month or so, things are going to be a little bit better. Airfare is going to remain at or below $300 through late September, they're saying. And then they say it's going to begin to rise. Now, of course, then it begins to rise again in October, November, but that's always because of holidays and more people travel.
Right.
I
think I'm traveling to Dallas in September for a couple days, and I think it was under 300.
Wow.
Which I was surprised about. You know, I try to. I'm a little bit of a bigger guy, so I try to get as much leg room as I can, and my knees aren't what they used to be. So, but I did notice. I'm like, wow, that was really. And Warren, you know, books all my travel for me, and he said, I can't believe it. It's really. So to your point, obviously in September we're going to see a little bit of a downturn, and then we'll get back up for the holidays again.
Yep. I wonder if the cost of jet fuel also has something to do with that, because gas prices are also coming back down a little bit. About 2 months after we hit an all-time high of over $5 a gallon, the average price of gas now has dipped below $4, first time since March as well. And the question is, do you think they're going to hold steady, or will they go up because of Labor Day, or what do you normally see happen here?
You know, normally you do see you see that increase in fuel prices around that Labor Day mark. But when you think of what the normal price has been around that Labor Day mark, like look at last year or the year before that, obviously gas prices have been higher in general. So maybe we won't see that much of an increase just because of how much of an increase we've had. I know one person that doesn't care is, President Biden, who said, well, people are just going to have to pay more. That was his answer. People are just going to have to pay more.
Well, there you go.
Yeah.
And so please reelect me.
If he makes it, right? I mean, that's the question. Can he make it past the finish line for another 4 years?
No kidding. But yeah, so I figure with we always start out the show with some bad news. We're talking about the economy. We're talking about this. At least a little bit of good news here, right? Airfares going down, gas prices going down. We can all take a little bit of good news with us, I think.
Well, Bill, and I said this before. You have to expect these things to happen. It can't stay like that forever. What I don't have a lot of confidence in right now is the general feel of this country as a whole, and the confidence we have in our leadership. Those things are going to last a lot longer than prices. When we start to question our leadership and we start to question our morals now with some of these bills that are being shoved down our throats, it's not a good time. But for me, and I told you, I grew up, I was a big nerd growing up, and I loved Lord of the Rings and all that stuff. There's in the movie version of The Two Towers, which is a Lord of the Rings book that they turned into a movie. These people are all sitting there. The men, women, and children are huddled together because they know they're about to be attacked. And this little boy, has these wide eyes, and he says, "I don't know, what do I do?" And there's no hope. And the main character looks at him and says, "There's always hope." And I think that's a strong message for us right now is we have to have hope. We've seen times that were just as bad as these. Now, inherently, every hard time that we come up against, it's going to have its own set of circumstances. But if we look back over history, we're not sending our fathers and our parents off to war anymore right now. We're not doing things that back then, the greatest generation, right? I think these are all things that we can handle. It's just in a way, it's even more dangerous when we start letting morals dictate our laws and our bills, and then we start dictating, who can have abortions, who can't, who can do this, who can't. There's just so much. All I want to know is that we live in a free society. We make our own decisions, and that's the way it should be. I don't know why this is so complicated and why we try to complicate it so much.
Well, listen, man, you're preaching to the choir here. I agree with you 100%. You're talking about all these bills and things like that. And, of course, the what are they calling it? The Inflation Reduction Act just got passed by a fairly slim margin about a week or so ago. And that's nothing but a trimmed down version of the original Build Back Better proposal, right? Oh, gosh.
And so that thing got thrown out completely, and then they went back to the drawing board.
Right. And
the funny thing, I want to bring that up, Bill, that the Build Back Better catastrophe, one of the first things that they wanted to do was they wanted to include Roth IRAs. Now, for those of you who don't know what a Roth IRA is, a Roth IRA is basically everything in it is completely tax-free. The growth is tax-free. You've paid the taxes on the money going into the Roth. So now everything in it, when you go to take it out, is completely free to you of taxes. So, I've tossed this name out there a lot. Peter Thiel, Silicon Valley billionaire.
Right.
He has over $10 billion in his Roth IRA. And he did that strategically so that he could pay the taxes now as opposed to in the future when we know taxes are going to be higher. So there's been this attack on the Roth, and that's what people were really concerned about. But what they did, they tried to find a very Washington way around it. They tried to say, well, we're just going to throw in your Roth IRA as a total retirement amount calculation. So all of your IRAs plus your Roth IRAs, if they're $10 million or more, you have to take an extra required minimum distribution from your IRA money. Now, you wouldn't have had to take it from your Roth. But what they did was they used the Roth to help get you to that number, right? So if it's 10 million, well, including your Roth, you have 10 million. So now you have to take an extra required minimum distribution. Now, the problem with that is with this Build Back Better, when any law becomes framework, okay, when any bill becomes framework and passes into law, it's very easy to amend it. It's not as easy to get it as framework, but it's a lot easier to amend it. So the fear was, well, $10 million total isn't enough now, so we're going to drop that to $6 million total. There was no control over how far they could drop that total number. So now you're taking all this extra money out, and yes, It didn't come from your Roth, but your Roth was used in the calculation to get you there, which to me is just completely asinine. Like, who would think to do this? So, of course, that lasted for like 2 days and it got thrown out. And now we're seeing these new, this inflation. Here's the other thing. You saw that they hired, 86,000 new IRS people, right?
Right.
Was it 86 or 87,000?
Something, somewhere in there, yeah.
Yeah. And I told you a couple weeks ago on this podcast, the one thing I hate about the IRS, they're so far behind. You write a check for what you owe them,
right?
And 3 months later, you get a nasty letter saying, "Hey, where's that money you owe us?" And then 2 days after that, another letter shows up and says, "Oh, never mind, you're good. We got it." Like, we're giving these people millions of dollars. So it doesn't matter how many people they hire, they're still that far behind. And everybody's asking me the same question: what kind of impact is that going to have on the tax situation? Is that going to make it harder for people that have S corporations? Going to make it? Well, the answer to that is yes, it will eventually, but based on the amount of ground that they have to cover before they even get back to normal, I think we're still probably another 2 years away or so before we start to see the impacts of hiring 86,000 new people.
Right. And this bill that just got passed is supposed to help with what are they? Let's see. It's supposed to do more for the climate, drug prices, and taxes is what they're saying. And some folks are saying it's a step forward. Other economists are saying, well, no, it really isn't. And that the legislation is, quote, crazily named by one guy. They're looking to do things like make sure Medicare can negotiate directly with pharmacies on prices.
Right,
right. But they're looking to tax companies who don't normally pay a lot of taxes another 15%, and that could affect big names like Amazon and Tesla. That's according to Barron's. And the tax would apply to those that have averaged $1 billion of adjusted pre-tax profit in the past 3 years. So who pays for that?
That's a lot of money.
Who pays for more taxes when these companies get taxed?
Well, 15% is a lot, right?
Yes.
And now you wonder why you see, job cuts and things like that. That there's a direct result for everything we do there. And let's go back to climate control for a minute, okay? I'm a proud Republican. I have very, very conservative beliefs. I do think that climate control is an issue. I do think that we have an issue with climate in our world right now, the way it is. But what I don't believe is that anyone is using that as their best interest rather than using that as a soapbox to stand on so that they can find another issue to talk about. I don't believe in their ability to do anything about it until they can show me they have a plan to stop, the glaciers from melting. If you could show me you have a plan to do that, because that's really what affects all of us. I just read an article the other day. I'm in Florida. How many years do we have before we're below sea level? We're already below sea level, but how many years before we're underwater, right? So I believe that there are issues in our environment right now that need to be addressed. I have zero confidence in Kamala or President Biden or anybody else to address them in an efficient way.
Well, I agree with you. It's all great talk, right? It's all great rhetoric until you can show me how are you going to stop a glacier from melting. Right. I mean, and they're pouring how much money into that? $369 billion for climate and energy provisions is what it says.
Holy cow.
That's a lot.
But they don't want to break it down line by line exactly what they're doing, though, right?
No.
I mean, that's the whole thing about it. It's like, we're going to spend this. And that's why Republicans get so mad because, I'm sorry, when you talk about successful businesses, capitalism, things like that, you fall on a certain side of the fence, Bill. That's just the way it works. I mean, you fall on a certain side of the fence. And when you see all of this money being spent, successful people, successful families, just like the ones listening to this, they want to know what this money is being spent on. And people are successful for a reason. When you have portfolios and retirement accounts that number in the millions and you've done such a great job, of course you're going to wonder, well, why can't the government do that kind of a job? Why does the government still decide they need to shake down retirees on their Medicare costs?
Right.
I mean, it's just a ridiculous notion, and it goes to ridiculous lengths.
It does. And again, the thing that bothers me the most, and it should bother anybody, it doesn't matter what side of the aisle you're on, is that they don't tell you anything. They use buzzwords. They use catchphrases that make you believe things are being done. And I mean this from both sides. You know what I'm saying?
I think, I think that's one of the best things that you said. And in all fairness, I think you're absolutely right. I mean, these Republicans that have gone so far right are just as bad in some ways, in a lot of ways, as these Democrats that have gone so far left.
Right.
It's gotten to a point where the lines have been drawn in the sand. And I think we talked about this too. It's so much easier with a social media presence right now to do things and say things and throw it all out there. And it just, I mean, it's almost like let's throw it against the wall and see what sticks at this point.
What I love, and it'll show up on social media every now and then, somebody, some watch group or somebody will have gone through like 6 months worth of press conferences and found all these clips from Democrats. Then on the other side, all these clips from Republicans, and they're all saying exactly the same words in the same order. And it's just here's what we've been given as our script, and this is what we're going to pound home. And really, like you said, no answers for you and I, for the guy down here that's going to wind up having to pay more for a Tesla or more for stuff on Amazon because they're getting taxed more. That's where that's going to come from. They're not
or
going to
more
pay
for our
on their
Medicare
own.
charges when the politicians don't care about that because they're not on that program.
Exactly.
Right. And the thing is, when we talk about success in the world I think about how hard it is to find success in this world, right? Republicans will be the first ones to tell you, oh yeah, just go out and work. You'll be able to do it. But we all know that that's not 100% true. It takes a certain type of mentality. And that certain type of mentality comes from the culture that you're a part of. And when the culture has shifted as much as it has now, this instant gratification, this I need it now, I'm going to get it now, find me a credit card, find me that. I mean, it's scary. It's scary.
It really is. It really is. Let's shift gears a little bit here.
Sure.
We're here to talk about retirement and the stuff that affects us in retirement and all that. So,
well, in all fairness, Bill, I think our retirees could completely agree with this conversation. I mean, this is. I sit and talk to families all day long, and these are the topics that come up, and I'm not afraid to tackle them. Like I said, I believe what I believe, and that's okay. They can believe whatever they want to believe. My belief is we've come to a point, especially with our Medicare charges right now, where nobody says anything, that we're in dangerous territory. That Medicare surcharge alone, even just if you're on the basic Medicare Part B, 20% increase from last year, and now we're going to have another one next year, and nobody says anything.
Yeah, I don't get how that's a good idea for folks who are no longer really taking an income to go ahead and keep raising them. I mean, look, if you've done well and you've planned well, you should be okay for anything, but not 20% increases on stuff that you need.
Well, not only that, I mean, think about the people that do really well with their income. And you know what? We're just going to charge them more then. That'll pick up the slack for the people that didn't do as well, right? Yeah. So if you're making, $180,000 plus, you're paying 4 times more for your Medicare than somebody else is just because they didn't do a good job.
Yeah, it's funny. You just made me think of something that my son, my oldest son, was in. He was in, I don't know, 8th grade maybe, right? And I had 4 kids. And it was the beginning of the school year once again, and my little guys who were still in elementary school came home with the required list of supplies for the classroom.
Oh,
right?
boy.
Not just buying stuff for your own kids, but
now you got to buy 18 boxes of Kleenex for
right. So
else.
You know that list, right? You've seen it. You've been there, right? Well, I just kind of lost it. I was like, oh my God, why am I buying for everybody else's? I got 4 kids of my own I have to provide for, and blah blah. And my son, who was in 8th grade, said, well, Dad, it's not the kid's fault that he can't afford crayons, he can't afford Kleenex. And I said, I understand that. I do, and I understand that. But, I have 4 of you to take care of before I can really think of everybody else. Because I'm a big believer in you take care of yourself, then you can take care of other people.
Put your own oxygen mask on first, buddy.
Right.
Yeah.
So a couple of years later, he gets hired by Publix, and he gets his first check. And he's expecting a certain amount of money, and he sees what they took out. He says, Dad, what is this? I said, well, somebody needed crayons.
Yeah, and there you go. I love those little teachable moments.
And that light bulb went off. He went, oh. So I always
and
remember
you can
that.
see it right behind their eyes. The light goes on.
Yeah, it's funny.
Oh, boy.
It's funny. Now he works in the economics department at a university here. And so he kind of took that to heart. But as we do look at retirement, what is considered retirement age? A new poll is out. The folks at Gallup polled non-retirees, and they said 66 is a good age for retirement. Now, that is up 6 years since the 90s. Of course, the age for receiving Social Security benefits, that changes all the time as well. So when you're talking to folks about that, is there an age?
Yeah, I think the best age to retire, and I don't have to put an actual age on it. What I would say is you have to be in a position where you can maintain the lifestyle that you want, and Social Security doesn't come into that equation. That's the ideal time to retire. If you know that your income looks like this, your investments are providing you this much income, because it is all about income in retirement. It's about preservation and income. Those two things, that's what it's about. It's not about growth anymore. It's not about performance. It's about preservation and income, and can I make it 20, 25 years, 30 years, whatever it is. So if you reach a point, I don't care whether you're 58, 62, 59, whatever that age is, and you have enough to generate income for your lifestyle, when we add back in inflation, of course, and you don't have to depend on your Social Security for that, I think you're in a perfect position to retire. Now, some people, Bill, again, you and I are different types of people. We're people that are used to being entrepreneurs. We're used to people that are going out and hunting and killing and eating what we kill. But, somebody who's coming from corporate world or something like that, I've got a cousin I was just talking to about this, corporate world his whole life. He's going to retire at 60, and he says, well, I'll give up this or I'll give up that, and that's okay because I'm done and I'm over it and I don't want to work anymore. I mean, clearly that's a different feeling, right? If you feel like that, then you got to find a way to retire. But the perfect scenario for me is I don't even need my Social Security. My investments are good. We're safe. I've got enough to last. I can maintain my lifestyle. It's such an easy, it's common sense, but it's the truth. If you're at that point and you can say, I don't even need the Social Security, then yeah, that's a great time to retire.
Well, there you go. See, I knew if anybody had the answer to that question, it would be you. And
sure. I mean, I know it sounds simple. Obviously, numbers are a lot more complicated than that, but let's keep a 30,000-foot view here. I mean, if you've got enough to maintain the lifestyle, you can live the way you want to live, and you don't need to depend on Social Security, you should have already retired. I mean, that's my, unless you love what you do, right? Because you and I both know you and I are never retiring. We love what we do. I mean, we always, but we're not in the same situation as somebody who works behind a desk or works for a corporation or who goes out every day on the job site and busts their tail, building something. That's a completely different, we're not in that same schematic. So for us, it's easy to say, well, I don't know that I ever want to retire because we don't feel like we're working. But for somebody else, that's a different story.
Right. Old saying, right? If you do what you love, you'll never work a day in your life. So
that's right.
So, with an answer like that, there's more answers out there for you too, and a great book that Adam wrote called They Lied, The Real Cost of Your Retirement. And you can find it at a website called taxfreefortmyers.com. That's taxfreefortmyers.com. And I love the book because I read it myself, and it answers a lot of questions. And you get into retirement, and a lot of times you're going, why didn't I know about this? Well, here's the answers to a lot of the why didn't I know about this questions that you have. And Adam's written the book so you can find out the difference between investment consulting and wealth management, mistakes to avoid with your IRAs or your 401ks, questions you should ask your advisor, all these good things that will help you understand managing retirement better. It's in the book. It's in the book.
It is, Bill. And I got to tell you, I've gotten to a point where I don't want to take too much credit for this. I really want to give the credit where credit is due. They say every good story writes itself, and this book really did write itself. And it came from the sacrifices of families that I've worked with. Everything you read in there is a result of some family that I worked with that trusted me and said, I'm a little concerned about this. And it took me a while because I would talk about it a lot, but I didn't necessarily write it all down. Once I wrote it all down, I've got such a great team here, Bill. We've got 2 estate planning attorneys, 2 CPAs. We have, other private wealth managers just like myself. We all train the same way. We all focus on these issues. It made it really, really easy to help people at the end of the day now that we've seen all these things for 10 years. We've seen them. We've seen all these issues come up. So I don't like to take a lot of credit for the book because it really did take a village, and a good story does write itself. I've got such a great team. I'm so blessed with, and I know it sounds cliche, but it's true. I am just very, very blessed with this team here. We have CFPs. We have, every letter in the alphabet. What it comes down to, though, is we have the right team of professionals behind us to help every family that we come in contact with. That's why it's so important. If you have these questions, ask them. Ask one of us. If you don't get to talk to me, and I try to talk to everybody that calls in from the podcast, just because I'm so grateful for them listening as well. I have so much faith in my team. Even if you're not talking to me directly, ask your questions. The book was written to start the conversation. If we don't talk about these things, if we don't talk about Medicare surcharges and the way this Medicare environment is going, nothing's ever going to change. If we don't talk about Roth conversions in a way that actually educates people, then a lot of these firms throw out Roth conversion and try and get you in the office so they can see everything that you've got, and that's like the last thing on their agenda. Nobody educates anymore, Bill, and it goes back to what we were talking about earlier. The laymen like us that are sitting back and wondering what the heck all these line items are for a $300 billion bill. We're wondering what's going on. It's because nobody educates, nobody talks, nobody explains. And that's what's missing in the financial industry as well. You need to be able to get your questions answered in a way that isn't so that someone can set up their next sale. That's the reality. And that's what I came to learn very early on in my career, still a little bit later than I'd like. But I got into this business to make a lot of money. I started making a lot of money, and I started thinking about, wait a minute, what I'm actually doing really is helping people, because my daughter said it to me the one day, Bill. I know I've shared this story with you. My daughter was talking to me about work, and we were I think we were on our way to Disney. And she's like, oh, we're going to Disney again. I said, yeah. I said, I work hard so that we can have some family time together and we can actually enjoy each other's company all the time. And she said, yeah, I know, Dad. I know. You tell old people how to spend their money. That's what she said to me, right? So I'm like, is this what my daughter's going to remember me for? And I am helping people. So why don't we focus more on the helping? The money will come, and the money did come. But, these people need, everyone out there that's listening, you need somebody that you can trust. And I'm giving you my word. If you just want some help and you have some questions, you call us and you're going to get your answers. Whether we work together or not, I promise you, you will get your answers.
Yep. And that phone number, if you would like to call Adam and his team, is 866-838-3765. 866-838-3765. And, of course, you can always find out more at evolutionretirementservices.com about Adam and everybody on the team there. So 2 great ways to get in touch with this guy and talk with him about anything that you have questions about as far as your retirement is concerned. And, of course, while we've got your attention real quick, please don't forget to hit subscribe, like, follow, whichever button you have on your podcast player right now. We really do appreciate it. And if you can let folks know about us, it's always great to get that audience a little bigger every week. And we're counting on you to do that for us as well. Adam?
And it's so easy, Bill, because we talk about, we'll talk about anything, as you could tell from the first 15 minutes of this podcast.
Yes.
I do want to make sure that we're aware when we talk about, taxfreefortmyers.com, evolutionretirementservices.com, those are all great ways to get in touch with us, but they also contain lots of resources for you if you never want to talk to us again. If you're shy and you don't want to talk to us, we've got some great resources on there. Not only is the book on there, the podcasts are on there, but I personally update. Okay, I'm lying. I don't personally update. Somebody on the team here personally updates the different white papers and the different articles that are up there as well. And Bill, I'm so excited. I'm actually writing 2 articles for Kiplinger this year. So that's going to be great. The first one's almost done. I got to work on them myself, write them myself. I had a very good co-author with me on that who helped me tie everything together, which was great. But the one thing I do want to say, we spend a lot of time talking about different ways of investing when we retire. I want to leave everybody today with just a little bit of a hint. If you go to the U.S. Treasury website, right now they have what are called inflation bonds or I-bonds, and you can't have anybody sell these to you. You have to do it yourself, which is really beneficial because there's no commissions or anything like that anybody's making. If you go to the Treasury Department website and you purchase an I-bond right now, I think it's 9.62% that they're paying. Now, they are 30-year bonds, but after the first year, you're able to, kind of sell and get out of them if you need to. If you sell before 5 years, what they do is they just recollect 3 months worth of interest. But every time they recalculate these things, like last time they were recalculated, it jumped from 7.6 to 9.2 now. So as long as inflation keeps going up, it's a really good place to be. Now, the only caveat is you can only do it with about $10,000 per person. So that is something that you might want to look into if you're like so many other successful families right now and you're sitting on a ton of cash because you've taken that step back from the market and said, whoa, wait a minute, let me, whatever you're doing right now, that's a great way to take $10,000, get some really good return on that.
See, this is why you want to talk to Adam, because he knows all this stuff. He knows all this stuff. Well, listen, man, our time has run out again. I can't believe how fast it flies by every time we get together. I'm going to go down and try to track down some spicy mustard Doritos and see if they taste as good as they sound. I'm not sure.
Yeah, let me know about that. I'm actually, I kind of want to try it just because, now it's like, okay, spicy mustard Dorito. That kind of sounds pretty good. My dad's Italian. He grew up with the spice. Like, he eats the peppers raw. I'm like, oh my, I can't do that. I mean, I get heartburn just looking at pepper.
Yeah, my son is one of those guys. The other one is a ketchup Dorito. He puts ketchup on everything like eggs, and I was never into that. But spicy mustard I could go for. So until next time, I will let you know how that goes, my friend.
All right, brother. We'll talk soon. Thanks again.
Investment advisory services are offered through Evolution Wealth Management Incorporated, an investment advisor registered with the state of Florida. Registration does not imply any level of skill or training. Evolution Wealth Management's unique CRD number is 307644. You can obtain a copy of Evolution Wealth Management's firm brochure, Form ADV Part 2A, free of charge by visiting advisorinfo.sec.gov. Evolution Wealth Management offers investment advisory services only, where it is appropriately registered or exempt from registration, and only after clients have entered into an investment advisory agreement confirming the terms of engagement and have been provided a copy of the firm's ADV Part 2A. Insurance services are provided by Evolution Retirement Services. Any guarantees mentioned are backed by the financial strength and claims-paying ability of the issuing insurance company and may be subject to restrictions, limitations, or early withdrawal fees, which vary by the issuer. They do not refer in any way to securities or investment advisory products. You should consider the charges, risks, expense, and investment objectives carefully before entering a contract. This material has been prepared for informational purposes only and should not be construed as a solicitation to affect or attempt to affect either transactions in securities or the rendering of personalized investment advice. This material is not intended to provide and should not be relied on for tax, legal, accounting, or other financial advice. Evolution Wealth Management and Evolution Retirement Services do not provide tax, legal, or accounting advice. You should consult your own tax, legal, and accounting advisors before engaging in any transaction. Evolution Wealth Management and Evolution Retirement Services are affiliated entities.